Hello, everyone. We are going to give it about 1 more minute for some additional folks to log on, and then we will start our presentation with some introductions this afternoon. Can everyone see the screen, the presentation? Can someone type in the chat that you guys can see? Make sure everything's working properly before we get started. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. We hope you're having a great week so far. My name is Kat Haddad. I am the training manager with Jobcase. Also presenting with me today is Jen Waldron. She's co-founder of Augusta Home Care Recruiting. Also joining us to assist with questions, we have two colleagues, Christy Fallon, who is Vice President of Employer Solutions at Jobcase, and Jobcase Senior Manager Martin Minkowitz. Apologies about that, Martin. Today, we're going to be providing some general information about the state of home care recruitment. We will be sharing some data points of the recruitment market in general, provide insight into how job seekers look for jobs, what they're looking for, their expectations, and some ways in which we can help you reach your target candidates and manage the hiring process effectively. We have quite a large group today, so I do have everyone muted. However, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat as Christy and Martin will address questions along the way. Time permitting, there will be a brief Q&A at the end of the presentation. We also are going to be sharing the deck after the call, so no need to take lots of notes. The deck will include all the statistics, the sources, the links, and contents we covered today. Also, we are recording today's call, so after the call, we will provide you with the access information for the recording as well. During the course of today's conversation, I'm going to share a number of statistics with you. Please note that for any specific topic, we have pulled the most recently available numbers that we have access to. So Jen, is there anything you'd like to add with regard to intros? I'm going to turn off my camera and then we'll go ahead and jump into the presentation.
Well, thank you so much for doing this presentation with Augusta, Kat. It's a pleasure to do it, and I'm really excited to be able to share some of this data with you and some of the data that Augusta has collected from the applicants that we screen and qualify for home care agencies. And I hope it's okay, Kat, for me to give just like a quick 2-minute background about myself if we don't know each other.
Of course.
Yeah, I've been in this industry, in the senior care industry, since 2009. I got my start actually as a caregiver working in a memory care community here in Oregon where I live. And since that time, that's really what made me passionate about this industry and wanting to improve the quality of care that older adults receive and the quality of life for caregivers. So since that time, I've helped build two different businesses in this industry doing caregiver training online. And then about 18 months ago, started this company with a couple business partners to help tackle the biggest issue that we saw in home care, which is really the recruiting process that home care agencies have, because it's a little bit more nuanced than just the fact that we know there's a macro shortage of caregivers, but there's other things going on that could make a really big difference. And so that's what Augusta is tackling. So super excited again, Kat. It's awesome to work with you on this presentation. And like Kat, I'm going to turn off my camera while we go through the slide deck so everybody can stay focused on that one thing. And yeah, let's jump in.
Awesome. Real briefly, Christy, Martin, is there anything you would like to add, or would you like me to go ahead and hop into the presentation?
Hop away.
Okay, hopping away. So in today's workplace, there are about 4 million more job openings than unemployed people in the United States. This is affecting many industries significantly, and some types of companies like yours are feeling this talent shortage more acutely than others. Today, we want to speak directly to the home care recruiting situation. There's already a large need for home care services, as you know. However, the US population is aging, which is causing an increased need for home care aides. Each day, more than 10,000 baby boomers turn 65, and about 70% of them will need long-term care at some point in their lifetime. The United States will also see the number of our population over the age of 85 double by 2040, from 6.6 million in 2019 to 14.4 million by the year 2040. This growing need means that over the course of the next decade, we will see more than a 25% increase in home health and personal care aid jobs, growing from 3.6 million in 2021 to 4.6 million jobs in 2031. This occupation category will experience the largest increase in new jobs of any occupation in that period, making it the largest occupation category in the country. While the population ages and more people need care assistance, the available pool of workers will grow only minimally, not keeping pace with demand. The number of working age Americans, or those between the ages of 25 and 64, will increase a mere 0.3% a year through 2035. Additionally, we will see losses in the number of those already working in this category. From 2021 to 2031, a projected 332,300 home health and personal care aides will drop out of the workforce each year due to retirement and some other reasons. Contributing to the shortage is the fact that there's a significant lack of awareness of the profession. Many people may not even be aware that of the home care profession at all, or they may not understand what the job entails. This can make it difficult to attract candidates who are a good fit for the job. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Jen to talk a bit about today's caregiver applicants. Jen?
Yeah, thank you for that. So as Kat just pointed out, we know that there's this macro shortage of caregivers, TCAs, home health aides, whatever you like to call them, depending on what state you're in the market overall. But even with that, there's still hundreds of thousands of applicants applying to these positions every day. So I guess what that is to say is that there is definitely still hope, because we see a lot of applicants coming through on different job boards and through our platform as well. So Augusta's software platform, it screens and pre-qualifies today over 4,500 caregiver applicants each month. And we've collected some data that I think is really salient to share right now. So out of these applicants that we're screening through our software every day, we see 48.5% of the applicants right now in the market have never been a professional caregiver in the past. So that means they need help understanding the industry, the role, and they need supportive training and mentoring, because that's just the nature of the applicants that are in the market today. There's not enough, most home care agencies today, they often say they want to hire somebody who's got some experience, like 6 months or a year experience. But the reality is almost half the applicants in the market today just have never been a professional caregiver before. They may have cared for friends and family. They may have some interest in the work due to their own life experiences, but they don't have that background. So it's something to think about in your business in terms of what types of supports you put in place for all those new caregivers that are the ones who are in the market today. Very similarly to that, 62.5% of caregiver applicants have never been registered, certified, licensed in any caregiving position. So I put all those three words there because it depends what state you're in, right? And whether or not you even have a registration or certification in your state. but it kind of, I guess, reinforces the point that I was just making, which is that there's a lot of people who are new to this industry. Maybe they have done some level of professional caregiving through, maybe they got a job as a private caregiver through like, one of the matching sites or whatever, where they took care of like a somebody that they an older adult that they had known, and they did get paid for it, but they were never working for a home care agency or assisted living facility where they had to go through the rules and regulations. So what that means when you're thinking about your home care business is that you need to put in place support that kind of, I guess you could say, potentially handhold the new caregivers through any of your state requirements. I think a really good example of that, and I know we have a lot of clients who are based in California, that's a really good example of what I'm talking about, the home care aid certification process. Most caregivers I have seen get a little bit confused by how it goes and what they need to do. So making sure you have a really clear process and supports in place for them to do that is definitely important. And then last but not least, this is really interesting to me, and I hope it's interesting to you as well. 44% of caregiver applicants in the market right now are applying to caregiving positions that are more than 15 miles away from where they live. And if you've been a home care agency owner or operator for a little while, you've probably already picked up on the correlation between a caregiver living too far away from their client and how long they stay with your business. The reality is a long commute is just not realistic for a typical caregiver. There might be some outliers where it works out for some reason, but the vast majority of caregiver applicants, your caregiver employees, really need to live very close to your clients to make it a good long-term fit. So that's another thing to think about in your business, about when you're thinking about how you qualify your candidates and who is a good applicant for your agency, making sure that you get caregivers that are actually near your clients, not necessarily near your office, but near your clients, is definitely something that you need to be thinking about and have a system for being able to manage.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about that transportation and location in a little bit more detail here, but that's a great segue into our talk on turnover. So the national average turnover in the home health services category reached higher than 22% in 2020. It was slightly up from 2019's rate of 21.89%. With deficits across the industry, many home health and home care agencies now are struggling to find and retain adequate staff. The estimated turnover rates for home health, hospice, and home care workers vary, but for home health aides specifically, one study found a turnover rate of 40 to 60%, with 80 to 90% of them leaving their employer within the first year. In fact, 287,000 home health and personal care aides a year can be expected to leave the occupation in search of other work. These turnover rates exceed nearly every other occupation. Voluntary turnover is nearly 4 times higher than involuntary turnover in this category. So there's many factors driving these high turnover rates. Specifically, home care roles are challenging for a variety of reasons. They're demanding positions both physically and emotionally. Home care workers often need to be physically fit and able to lift and move people. This can be a challenge for some candidates, particularly those who may have their own health issues. In addition to those physical demands, home care workers often work with patients who have chronic or terminal illnesses, which can be emotionally challenging. It's important to find candidates who are able to manage the emotional demands of the job. Also, potential job-related injuries are a very real concern. The rate for overexertion injuries in home care services is approximately 183 per 10,000 workers. This is especially high, in fact, more than double the corresponding national rate and one of the 10 highest rates reported for overexertion injuries among several hundred industries for which the Bureau of Labor Statistics publishes data. Because of the nature of the work, sprains and strains are very common injuries, especially to the shoulders and lower back. Pay is a huge factor as well, contributing to this turnover. Home care workers are often paid lower wages than workers in other industries. This can make it difficult to attract and retain qualified candidates. According to salary.com, the average wage for home care aides in the US is $24,000 to $34,000 per year, or just $12 to $16 per hour. And the median across the country is roughly $27,965 annually. Finally, as Jen mentioned earlier, home care workers may need to travel to and from multiple client homes each day, and they may need to bring their own transportation. This is a huge challenge for some candidates, particularly those who do not have their own reliable vehicles. Jen, did you have anything else you wanted to add on the transportation topic?
Yeah, I think it's just as you kind of alluded to, it just reinforces the data that we've found through our own software and screening applicants at Augusta. Caregivers that don't tend to work close to their clients seem to be more likely to have issues related to transportation that eventually lead them to leaving their position, and in hopes of finding something that's more convenient or perhaps pays a little bit more, also going to the low pay point that you made as well. So I think when you're thinking about your process of recruiting and qualifying applicants, being able to geolocate applicants that actually live near your clients is worth the extra money and time and resources that it takes to do that. Because we know, actually, Kat can talk about this in a second. It's a good segue. Turnover is a very expensive thing, more expensive than investing upfront in the process of making sure you get the best possible candidates the first time. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes, we are going to talk about how expensive this is. Turnover is very costly for providers, and more importantly, it can lead to poor patient outcomes. So while few studies exist on the cost of in-home caregiver turnover specifically, a study by the Center for American Progress helps shed light on turnover costs more generally. According to the study, hiring and training a replacement for an employee earning less than $30,000 per year costs approximately 16% of the employee's salary, or $2,600. This is in line with a study cited in a report by the Institute for the Future of Aging Services, IFAS, which gave a conservative estimate of at least $2,500 per employee in direct cost, which includes things like hiring and training, to replace a direct care worker such as an in-home caregiver. The indirect costs of turnover are likely far greater and can include things like the things you see listed here on your screen: loss of productivity until they can find a replacement and train them, reduced service quality, lost client revenues, and losing clients altogether. And in general, it's also going to have a negative impact on employee morale. So overall, recruiting and retaining home care workers can be extremely challenging, but there are steps that can be taken to address these challenges, such as offering competitive pay and benefits, providing adequate training and support, and raising awareness of the profession. We're going to talk about these things a little bit more in just a minute. First, whether you're hiring home care aides or other positions, it's really important to understand how candidates look for opportunities. The vast majority of the time, candidates for all types of roles start their job search on Google. They're using numerous sources when they look for jobs. They're visiting your websites, looking at social media, searching job boards, and 70% or more of them are doing all of this from their mobile device. So for employers like you, that really just means that it's a really fragmented market. You need to be sure that you're doing everything you can to advertise where people are looking. You want to make sure that whatever you're doing is optimized for Google. As I mentioned, that is where most people start looking for their next opportunity. You need to be sure that you have some sort of social media strategy. We're actually going to talk more about that in some great detail in a few moments. It's also important that you keep your jobs page of your website updated and appealing. Candidates are doing research. They are going to visit your website. Make sure that when they do, it's a positive experience. Whatever you do, consider that most people are looking for jobs on their tablet or cell phone. So this comes into play especially during the application process. Employers should make sure that you're doing whatever you can to make it easy for people to apply. And then finally, make sure that you are doing everything you can in your job postings to ensure that when a prospective candidate sees your opportunity, you've made it an attractive option because of the competition for qualified candidates is really strong, as we mentioned with those statistics at the top of the call. We're going to talk more in depth about this in a few moments, but ensuring that you include enough information in your job postings to allow candidates to determine whether or not the role is right for them is more important now than ever before. So now we are going to talk a little bit about employer brand. What is it and why is it important? Employer brand is your company's reputation as an employer. It's different from your company's consumer or retail brand. Both are important, but for different reasons. Employer brand encompasses everything you do to position your company in the employment marketplace. It also includes what your employees and potential employees think about you. Is your company a good place to work? Do employees feel valued? Would they recommend your company to friends who are looking for a great place to work? What story does your career site tell? And how do you come across on social media and review sites? What do job applicants say about that candidate experience? These are all important questions that play into your employer brand. It's also important to understand that employer brand isn't static, so it requires constant cultivation across every touch point. From the first time a potential candidate learns about your company, through the application, interview, and hiring process, and the entire tenure of their employment, every moment contributes to your employer brand. A positive employer brand is critical when you're trying to attract and retain that top talent. Most candidates research a company's reputation prior to applying and would not even consider working for a company with poor social standing. And when it comes to how employer brand affects your current staff, more than 90% of employees would consider leaving for no more money if they found an opportunity with a company that had a better reputation. Those are pretty strong, high numbers. So how do you build a strong employer brand? We have a few tips to get you started. First, you have to define it. Employer brand is all about showing who you are. So the first step in building that brand is to solidify your identity as an employer. Start by reviewing your company's mission, vision, and values. How do they translate to recruiting and talent acquisition? What kind of candidates will help fulfill your objectives? What do these candidates need to know about your company? And what sets your company apart from others in your space? Make your employer brand the heart of your career site. Your career site isn't just a collection of job listings, it's your company's most powerful recruiting asset and the embodiment of your employer brand. When job seekers look at your career site, they should immediately understand your company's identity, personality, and values. You want to build an exceptional candidate experience. Your employer brand should carry through, like I said, every touch point along the candidate journey. Streamline the recruiting process and keep candidates engaged with consistent, cohesive campaigns across email, social, web, text, and more. Make the most of social media. As we discussed earlier, job seekers are using social media sites like LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram even to research potential employers. Make sure you're leveraging these channels to connect with candidates and show them who you are. Your social media strategy should include not just sharing job postings, but also compelling content that supports your employer brand message. Get your employees involved with this process too. When job seekers conduct their research, they're really looking for more than your corporate messaging that most companies post on their websites. They want to know what it's really like to work at your company, and they want to hear it from real employees. So leverage your current workforce by creating testimonial content that can be featured on your career site. Whether it's the form of video interviews, career path articles, or even just simple quotes, the stories will help to express your employer brand in a way that resonates with candidates. Also, focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. In today's employment marketplace, workplace diversity is more than just a nice to have. It's a strategic imperative. As you shape your employer brand, it's really critical to highlight your efforts toward building a diverse and inclusive workplace. Finally, refine as you go. I said a moment ago that employer brand isn't static, it's constantly evolving and requires care and feeding over time. Part of the ongoing work is to monitor things that influence your employer brand. Online reviews, social media chatter, exit interviews, and feedback in the candidate experience. Then you want to use that information to refine your brand message and apply it in ways that will help you attract top talent and keep current employees engaged with your mission and values. A bit more on social media. Not only are candidates using social media to find their next opportunity, but employers are leveraging social media in multiple ways. It's a great tool, but there are also some things to keep in mind. Jen wanted to share some of her personal experiences for this topic. Jen?
Yeah, thanks, Kat. So I guess what I would like to say about this is I think that all of these stats are definitely true, and they're supported by by the conversations that I have on a daily basis with home care agency owners and operators. I talk to a lot of recruiters and operators who say that they look at a candidate's social media profile before making a hiring decision, which on the one hand, I can totally understand the urge to do that. I would say I've certainly been in a position before where I wanted to kind of go that extra step of trying to understand who this person really is. So I've been in your shoes when it comes to that, as I've hired a lot of salespeople over the years, and so in that respect, I've done quite a bit of hiring. But I do also want to, I guess, caution you a little bit about using social media to try and vet out your candidates. And I'd like to challenge you to think a little bit about how that helps you qualify a candidate. I think what can happen is that during your interviews and when you look at a social media profile, or even just how they maybe present their resume, whether or not it looks nice, visually speaking, or if there's grammatical errors and things like that, that can really shape your perception of a candidate. However, unfortunately, the data that's out there doesn't actually really support using social media as a way to vet a candidate, or using a first impression in an interview as a way to vet a candidate. It kind of contributes to going with your gut on a candidate, which unfortunately our perceptions are not always correct. But there is some data that I can share on kind of why using social media profiles doesn't always support a strong hiring process. The first thing that comes to mind is that there's a great book on recruiting called The Who Book. It's basically a hiring method that's systematic and data-driven. In the Who Book, which I'm happy to share the link if anybody wants to get it. I think it's very cheap on Amazon. But it's in the book, they did over 1,300 hours of interviews with over 300 CEOs. And in all the companies that they studied, they found about half of the companies consistently made the wrong hiring decisions. And it was specifically because hiring managers were going on their gut instincts. And that has to do with the perception that you get. Maybe somebody has their hair combed really nice in an interview, and you all of a sudden get the sense that maybe they're like you. but that's a gut instinct. A few more stats around that, in addition to what the WHO book has to say about going with your gut, is that on average, an employer is only looking at a resume for 6 to 7 seconds. I've got a good source on that I can share with you. And then most hiring professionals say that they tend to make a hiring decision within the first 5 minutes of an interview. That's what I'm talking about when you just meet somebody and, wow, they seem great. You get that gut feeling that they seem great, but that's not really data driven, right? And then there's also, just generally speaking, very little evidence that, as I said, going with your gut feeling is really effective because of what we just talked about with turnover. Even outside of the home care industry, about 1/3 of new hires tend to quit in the first 6 months. So that kind of supports this idea that it's maybe the turnover is actually perhaps more related to what's happening at the very top of your funnel in your recruiting process, that sometimes there's too much gut involved and not enough systematic, data-driven decision making about what applicants you're getting and what candidates you're hiring. So all of this is to say, I feel your pain on letting a perception of an applicant or a candidate lead you to a hiring decision. But the reality is that what our recommendation is from everything that we've learned over the course of working on Augusta is that building in a systematic approach where you can actually ask your candidates the same questions in multiple ways over the course of your interview process is a much more data-driven way to find out who this candidate really is. Do they answer questions consistently when you meet with them over time? That's going to tell you more about who they are and what their experience is and who they're going to be in the future in terms of their behaviors than checking out their social media profile. So yeah, that's my spiel on social media.
Awesome. You said a lot there too. Also, I think that and it's important. A lot of what you just said is about interviewing your prospective employees, but it also goes both ways. And I think our next topic kind of goes to that, making sure that we're creating effective tools that will not only, and processes that not only allow us to weed through those candidates, but also allow them to make informed decisions about what jobs they're applying for. So let's talk about, before we get into how we can help you guys with all this, I want to touch on just a couple of final tips when it comes to the job posting themselves and the general hiring process. So no matter what position you're hiring for, a thoroughly descriptive post about the job, the ideal candidate, and your company will ensure that your ad gets visibility on the fullest possible range of job aggregators and niche sites available. Let's talk real briefly about some best practices for job postings. First, you're always going to want to make sure that you're including your company name if possible. Many job boards will not post confidential ads, so you may be missing out on great candidates who visit those sites. Also, most candidates, they want to know exactly what company they're applying to. Like I said, they're doing their research. Many candidates see confidential ads as possible scams, so avoid this by including your company name whenever possible. Also, think about focusing on what your firm does for the candidate versus what your company needs. Jobs that focus on what you do for the candidate get about 3 times the response on average versus focusing on your requirements. Next, 61% of job seekers say that details about compensation are what matters most. In fact, some states are even making it law to include this information in job postings. And over 70% of job seekers wanted to hear about salary in the first message from a recruiter. And that first message really is your job posting. You're going to be much more likely to get candidates who are a good long-term fit for the role if they're able to kind of self-select self-select based on the compensation information provided up front. And you're not going to get further into the hiring process by hiding the salary requirements or salary expectations. The sooner you can get that conversation started, the more likely you are to be spending your time wisely interviewing people who actually are going to be happy with the compensation of that specific role. And of course, benefits information is important, so make sure you're including that in the postings. It'll help them determine whether or not it's going to be a good fit for them. And there are a few other things you can do to get better postings. Talk about your culture, tell candidates a bit about your company, who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do. Also, don't include a laundry list of mandatory requirements. Keep it to 5 or fewer. Candidates want to focus on how their skill set and background fit with the position's requirements, but they can really easily be put off by a long list of mandatory needs. So if you happen to have more than 5 major requirements, consider changing some of them to preferred. This way you'll encourage more applicants and you will capture, review, and engage with a wider set of potential candidates. Also, we've talked about this already, but talk about commitment to diversity and inclusion if appropriate. This type of information is important to candidates. Also, at the bottom of the screen there, you see if you need assistance writing compelling job postings, you can use the Augusta Care free job post generator. The link is on your screen there and will also be included in the follow-up communication after today's call. So just a couple more things, final thoughts on the actual job postings. Formatting matters, keep it clear and organized. Use common job titles rather than internal jargon or terminology. You want to think about how do candidates search? We talked about them starting on Google. They're going to Google and they're typing in basic search criteria, basic well-known job titles. Also add keywords and make it easy for applicants to apply right from the post itself. Do not direct them to a physical location to apply or include a phone or fax number or other application instructions. The more steps you have in the process, the more opportunity to lose great candidates via drop-off. If they're interested in your open role, they want to click and apply quickly and easily. And also including those types of things rather than just having a click to apply will affect the possible sites that your job can be seen on, because some sites will disregard jobs that have that type of information included. So speaking of the application process, we have some suggestions on that as well. Communication, of course, is key. Be upfront about the process and transparent about your expectations and about your company itself. People who know what to expect are far less likely to drop out or turn over. And finally, speed to hire matters. Caregivers today are applying to multiple jobs. Jen told me as many as 16 or more at one time in many cases. So make sure you're getting them in direct contact with your hiring managers as quickly as possible so they aren't scooped up by another employer. Okay, so now we've shared lots and lots of statistics and best practices with you. We hope this information so far has been helpful, but now we'd like to also share some great resources that we offer that can help ensure your open positions are seen and that your hiring process is as streamlined and effective as possible. So I'm going to start by discussing job cases, recruitment, advertising solutions, and then I'll turn it back over to Jen to share how Augusta Care Services can make your life easier. As we discussed, there's many options out there for both candidates and employers, and we are able to reach large-scale audiences in a very targeted way to make sure that not only are you casting a wide net, but that you're getting the best return on your advertising investment. So let's start with Jobcase. What is Jobcase? Jobcase, as it says here, it's where the workers are every day, not just when they're looking for a job. The Jobcase community, it's an online community for workers. It gives them a place to kind of come together to get ahead at work. It's where they can go to find jobs, they can share stories, answer each other's questions, and offer one another support. At any time, registered Jobcase users may fall into either the active or passive job seeker category, depending on what stage they are in their career at the moment. These workers can be actively looking for a position, or they can be using the platform to just ask or answer questions, share stories, ask or offer advice. So you've heard me say the word workers quite a few times. That's kind of on purpose, because at Jobcase, much of our community is comprised of hourly, skilled, and gig workers, professions like we're talking about today, like home care workers, also things like baristas and warehouse workers, medical staff, cashiers, delivery drivers. We know that this group of workers make up about 80% of the US workforce, so this critical audience is a perfect fit for lots of employers, including you. We like to think of Jobcase as kind of the LinkedIn for blue collar and hourly workers, but Jobcase isn't just for blue collar workers. 15% of our community is also college educated. So regardless of the job title or category, we're gonna get your job in front of the right audience. Our platform has more than 120 million registered users, and 15 to 20 million of those are active in any given month. Our massive scale allows you to reach a larger, localized audience of both those active and passive candidates. It's going to help reduce your time to hire and allow you to hire at scale. In fact, we are currently ranked #2 among US online career services, according to ComScore. And not only, like I said, will you reach active candidates who are searching for opportunities on Jobcase, but maybe more importantly, given the talent shortage in home care workers, through the Jobcase community, you're going to unlock access to a pool of passive job seekers. Those are workers who aren't active on other job boards. So it's really going to expand your reach even further. When you post your open role, our smart technology works its magic, and it does the heavy lifting of quickly identifying and connecting you with the workers who match your specific hiring needs, regardless of whether they're actively looking for a job at the moment or not. So in addition to being on the Jobcase job board to reach those active candidates, your jobs will be included in multi-channel personalized outreach to candidates in the Jobcase community via email, SMS, push notifications, job alerts, things like that. So another powerful tool we have is, we call it Max Recruit. And it kind of in a nutshell, what the problem we solve is, you don't have to take your jobs and post them individually on multiple sites and pay individually and manage all those separate platforms. We're going to take care of all of that for you. You're going to post once, pay once. We ensure that your jobs are going to get to the right sites and get in front of the right job seekers. And here's how it works. The Max Recruit network includes sites like Indeed and ZipRecruiter and Glassdoor, Jobs to Careers, Next, as well as many other sites via our extended network. So with Max Recruit, our technology is going to look at your job title and location and draw from millions of data points to distribute your job ads to the right aggregators and job boards for that specific job. We're then going to monitor the results and adjust the site mix to where your jobs are appearing to spend your advertisement investment wisely. We're going to provide you the best possible ROI for you. And then with Jobcase and Max Recruit, we really can get your open positions in front of the widest audience and ensure that each position is targeted to the right candidate in the right places to get your open roles filled effectively. Okay, one more time, I'm going to turn it back over to Jen to talk about Augusta Care recruiting platform. And Jen, for this portion, just let me know when you'd like me to advance each slide, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kat.
Awesome. You're welcome.
So, yeah. So Augusta Care or Augusta Home Care Recruiting, our software platform helps home care agencies identify and hire the best caregivers easily. If you want to share the next slide.
Sure.
As I just alluded to, we only serve home care. So that is our entire world. I wanted to share just a few of the clients that we work with today. Many of the major franchises that you may be familiar with, a lot of independently owned and operated home care agencies as well. So everything that we do in regards to screening and qualifying candidates is entirely designed for home care. So I mentioned earlier about how important it is to geolocate your candidates and make sure that they're close to your clients, not necessarily where your office is, especially important if you happen to live in a rural area or in a densely populated city like LA, for instance, where 10 miles could take you an hour. So those are the little things that make a huge difference for home care, that you kind of can't get anywhere else. The other thing that I wanted to share about kind of what we've designed for home care is that we know it's a really big job, and a lot of your days are oftentimes filled with fires, people calling out at the last minute, not showing up for a shift, all these things that happen often in home care. So I put our integration partners up here on the screen because as soon as we started building our software, our clients told us they did not want to learn any new software. So what we've done is prioritize integrating with the software that all home care agencies are already using. So that way our screening and qualification and ability to fast track your motivated candidates to an interview, all of that fits in seamlessly with the programs that you're already using, basically. If you want to go to the next slide. So the reason why we started to develop this specific piece of software to help you screen and qualify candidates is because agency owners have told us how incredibly frustrated they are by applicants who are just not serious about working with their agency. Most home care agencies that I talk to get a lot of applicants, hundreds. I've even talked to agencies that are independently owned and operated that are getting thousands of applicants a month. So the applicants are in the market, but what's happening is a couple things. One, the candidates seem to be applying to up to 16 jobs at one time. Actually, I've got a good stat on that from a recent study. And so if you don't get back to them within 5 minutes of their application, they probably are getting an automated text or an email from another agency, or even an automated phone call or a real phone call from another agency. So I've talked to a lot of agency owners who are really worried about losing applicants to competitors. And then last but not least, I mean, the other reason that we came to the solution that we have in terms of what our software does and how it works is because most home care agency owners have told us they feel like they just need to get more applicants. But I'm, again, going to challenge you a little bit. And if you want to go into the next slide, I'll show you why. So the reason why we don't believe it's just about more applicants, of course, you have to have a decent volume of applicants. Like you need to be advertising probably for your jobs to get enough applicants. But the other problem that's going on is exactly what Augusta solves, which is that today's home care agency hiring funnel looks like these numbers here. Only between 5 and 10% of applications ever turn into interviews. And then only between 1 and 5% of applicants ever end up getting hired, which I know this is wild, but actually one of my customers said this to me, and I really have to credit him. He's awesome. He said it's harder to get into his home care agency than it is to get into Harvard because he gets 500 applicants a month and only hires 5 people out of the group, or, like it's such a tiny number. So what that says is that for a lot of home care agencies out there, there are plenty of applicants, but what is happening to all those applicants that they never get to the bottom of the hiring funnel? The other thing that we've seen going on that's very related to I'm just going to call a spade here, like not a great hiring funnel for the typical home care agency, is that the typical recruiter today at a home care agency is usually spending up to 50% of their day on the phone, reviewing resumes, just trying to find out whether or not a candidate is qualified, which that's kind of a big waste of time, unfortunately, for the recruiter when they could be doing more interviewing and actually doing the data-driven work that I was talking about earlier, where they're actually checking and verifying, did this person's application and screening process actually match what their interview questions, their interview answers told me about them? Because that's a much more systematic way to determine the quality of the candidate. So if you want to go into the last slide, I'll tell you a little bit more about how we actually solve these problems. So basically, as I've kind of alluded to, what our software does is through automatically screening, qualifying, and motivating your best possible candidates for your home care agency, we help you close your series applicants really, really fast. So to the candidate, our software appears to be a job application, essentially. They don't know anything else is happening, but there is a lot of magic in the background and an algorithm that's specific to home care. So our software is incredibly easy to use. It's got many, many different use cases. Our clients use it on the job boards that they're posting on. They create QR codes and use it in handout flyers, brochures that they take to job fairs and CNA schools. And of course, they use it in email text marketing or remarketing to candidates and referrals. It's just a URL, so that means it literally can be placed anywhere. And as I mentioned earlier, it is truly seamless in terms of fitting in with the software that you already use today. So you don't need to learn a new system. It just kind of plugs in. And part of what we're doing is when we identify a qualified candidate, we essentially give them a route out of the job market. So that way they don't need to keep applying to 16 jobs at one time. So candidates, as I said a couple times, they're applying to so many jobs because they tend to be window shopping. That's what's going on in in the data that we've collected. They're looking for something that's a little bit better. It's a little bit closer to where they live. It's a little bit more money. And they keep applying until a better offer calls them or emails them or whatever. With our software, we identify the motivated candidates up front and give them an avenue to be able to get to your recruiter faster than any other way, basically. They can schedule on the spot and potentially even be talking with their recruiter or hiring manager same day, within minutes, within hours, depending on how you have it set up. So we kind of stop them from continuing to apply because they found an opportunity that's a good fit that they're qualified for. And then ultimately what's going to happen with our software is that your recruiters come in at the beginning of the day. They have a calendar full of appointments. They didn't need to do any outreach to get them. And the recruiter knows exactly what to say to that candidate and what to ask that candidate to make sure that their information is valid and that they're really serious about this job and that they can close them. They know what's important to this candidate, what benefits that they want, what schedule they want. And all the things that are really important for home care. So that's a little bit about Augusta. Thank you so much for that, Kat. I think
No
we
problem.
can move on. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So to kind of wrap up and summarize what we've said today, finding good home care workers for your business can be a challenging task, but there are several strategies you can use to increase your chances of finding qualified, reliable, and compassionate caregivers. Here are just some tips that we'd like to share with you. First, use multiple recruitment channels. To reach a wider pool of potential candidates, you want to use a variety of recruitment channels like job postings, online job boards, social media, flyers in the community centers, networking events, referrals from current employees, and partnerships with staffing agencies. Make sure that you're very clear about job requirements. So clearly outline the qualifications, experience, skills, and job duties required for the position in your postings and during the interview process. This is going to help you attract candidates who are really going to be that great fit for your open roles. Also, check references, conduct background checks, verify the candidate's credentials, employment history, and references before hiring them. You can also conduct a background check to ensure the candidate has a clean criminal record. Make sure your interviews are thorough. During the interview process, ask open-ended questions that require the candidate to provide specific examples of their skills, experience, and of their problem-solving abilities. You can also ask some behavioral questions to gauge their level of empathy and compassion, which are important in these types of roles. Also, make sure you're offering competitive compensation and benefits. Home care work can be very demanding, as we've discussed, so offering those competitive wages, maybe flexible schedules and benefits such as health insurance or paid time off, retirement plans, those types of things can help you attract and retain top talent. and then provide ongoing training and support. So you have to invest in professional development and ongoing training of your workers to help them feel valued and confident in their work. And this definitely leads to better outcomes for your patients. So we think by using these strategies, you can increase your chances of finding good home care workers who are a great fit for your business. So with that, Christy, Martin, do we have any questions in the chat that you have not already addressed?
We do not, but
Awesome.
we are definitely invite them when we send out this recording. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have or any additional information that you'd like.
Awesome. All right, one final note then. Jen and I, along with our entire teams, would like to thank you for your time today. We hope that you found the information we shared useful, and for participating in today's webinar, we'd like to extend a couple of special offers for you. First, you see here, we're going to give you your first job posting free. That's a value of more than $250. That will include the Jobcase community and that Max Recruit product we talked about, getting your job out to multiple different sites to get in front of the right candidates. And also, Jen generously is offering, if you sign up with Augusta Home Care Recruiting by the end of June, you're going to automatically receive 20% off. So a couple of great offers. Again, we'll include these in the deck as a follow-up. And I also wanted to share with you our contact information. You see Jen, Christy, and Martin. If you would like to take advantage of one of those offers or both of them, you can contact them for additional information. And Jen, I would like to let you have the last word here. Thank you so much for your partnership today. We appreciate it. Hopefully everybody found this conversation helpful. Would you like to say any final words?
Thank you so much, Kat. It was great doing this with you, and same with you, Christy and Martin. So appreciate the group sticking around to the end here. And yeah, please do reach out with any questions, thoughts, comments, or if you're interested in learning more about either of our services. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.